The wind did not howl in the great hall of the northern lights. It hummed a single perfect note. From her torrent of carved permafrost, the Snow Queen watched the aurora paint the sky in shifting shades of neon green and violet. To human eyes, she was a terrifying spectre of winter, a monster who breathed frost and stole children. But as she looked down on the icy floor of her palace, her thoughts were entirely devoid of malice. She did not hate mortals. She simply pitied them for the design flaw they carried inside their chests, human emotion. To her, the human heart was a fragile, unpredictable furnace. She had watched from her frozen heights as mortals tore their own lives apart for the feelings they could neither control nor understand. Love turned into possessive jealousy. Joy mutated into the crushing agony of grief. Anger blinded the wisest of minds. Emotions were a sickness that rotted humanity from the inside out. And she knew this because, centuries ago, she had been infected by it too. Long before her hair turned the color of a blizzard and her blood ran like liquid ice, she had been a mortal queen in a prosperous sunlit land. Her heart had been vast, warm, and deeply empathetic. She had loved her people fiercely, ruling with kindness and trusting that human goodness would always prevail. But warmth, she learned, was a resource that demanded constant consumption. The wealth of her kingdom bred greed, and greed ignited a catastrophic civil war. The queen watched in horror as the very people she had nurtured turned on one another. The passions she had once celebrated, love for a family, ambition for a better life, became the fuel that burned her world to the ground. In a matter of months, her grand libraries were reduced to cinders, her fields were salted, and everyone she loved turned to ash. Left alone in the ruins, her grief became an agonizing phantom heat that suffocated her. She realized then the ultimate truth of the human condition. To love someone was to hand them the power to destroy you. Warmth was temporary, warmth decayed. Driven by the unbearable pain of her own shattered heart, she turned her back on the sun and walked north. She stripped off her sing silks as she climbed higher into the frozen wastes where no mortal could survive. At the absolute edge of the world, where the air was pure and silent, she collapsed onto the ice. She did not pray for death, she prayed for stillness. The primordial spirits of the frost answered. They offered her a bargain, her fragile, bleeding heart, in exchange for eternal peace. She accepts the offer without a doubt. As the frost crawled up in her veins, her tears froze into diamonds on her cheeks. The raging fire of her grief finally went out, replaced by a profound, beautiful silence. She did not become evil, she became order. Centuries passed in perfect, symmetrical isolation, until the afternoon she flew over the mortal town square and saw Kai. The humans believed she had stolen the boy out of spite, but from her perspective she was performing a rescue. A shard of Troll's distorted evil mirror had pierced Kai's eye and lodged in his heart. The queen watched as the boy mocked his grandmother and tore apart roses he once cherished. The infection of human cruelty was already taking hold. Left there, the world would have broken him, turning him into a bitter, miserable man. When she stepped from her sledge and kissed his forehead, she did not curse him. She numbed him. Her second kiss made him forget his grief. To the world, it was an abduction. To the queen, it was an anesthetic. She brought him to her palace of absolute logic. Without the noisy, distracting theater of human emotion, Kai became brilliant. He didn't waste time crying, he didn't feel the sting of loneliness, and his mind was perfectly clear. She sat him upon the frozen floor and gave him a task to arrange jagged pieces of ice into the world eternity. If he could solve the puzzle through pure reason, he would be his own master. In her palace, Kai felt no hunger nor cold. Under her care, he was safe, still, and perfectly preserved from the agonizing, ruinous noise of human heart. The peace of the palace was shattered the day the girl Gerda barged into the frozen gates. The Snow Queen watched from her throne as the intruder approached Kai. Gerda brought with her the same chaotic, desperate warmth the Queen had fled centuries ago. She did not offer Kai a logical solution to his puzzle. Instead, she threw her arms around him and wept. The Queen braced for the inevitable disaster that humans' feeling brought, but as Gerda's tears fell upon Kai's chest, the ice around his heart did not shatter in violence. It melted. The shard of the troll's mirror was washed away, and Kai began to weep too, casting the glass from his eye. They held each other, entirely indifferent to the perfect geometry and absolute logic of the Ice Palace. The Snow Queen raised her hand. With a single breath, she could have frozen them both into glittering statues, preserving them forever in a state where they would never know pain again. But as she looked at them, she saw a reflection of her former self. She remembered that humanity's willingness to burn, even if it meant eventually turning to ash, was a choice they made willingly. They preferred the beautiful tragic decay of the sun over the eternal perfection of the frost. Slowly, the Queen lowered her hand with a quiet sweep of her cloak. She let them go. She watched them walk hand in hand back to their fleeting world of roses and seasons, destined to grow old and die. The Snow Queen turned her back to her throne of ice, wrapping the silence around her like a blanket. She remained the guardian of quiet places, knowing that someone has to stay behind to keep the stars bright and the winter pure.